oftentimes we hear real estate agents who are looking for an admin who's detail oriented, right? That's like the number one most common thing that people say that they want. And I go, okay, that's great. No one's going to say I want an admin who's not detail oriented, right? So like, okay, congratulations. You've satisfied the first step in real estate admin mediocrity.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Mike, every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way real estate agents and entrepreneurs think about life and business in order to be more profitable and productive. And this week, I want to disrupt the way you think about the R word and Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Oh, man.
I can already tell that you're a big Dog the Bounty Hunter advocate and a big follower. I already know. However,
the dog pound.
There are some interesting things that we can learn from Dog the Bounty Hunter as it pertains to running a business and this R word. And the R word that I want to unpack is the word recruiting, and how the search for Brian Laundrie.
I thought you was talking about another R word when you talk about
all the headlines
Dog
today.
the Bounty Hunter. All right.
And we can learn from Dog the Bounty Hunter about how to effectively find missing persons. You know, so right now the dog is making all the headlines, right, with his hunt for Brian Laundrie. And listen, cancel culture, I don't need you to tell me that I'm being insensitive by extrapolating what we can learn from a missing person. I understand it's tragic. I get that. And it is awful. And at very best, he's still a piece of shit. Domestic abuse.
This is clickbait,
right? So,
we said the name.
I get that. However, let's take that out of it and let's look at what lessons are there from a entrepreneur perspective that we can apply by understanding the playbook that the FBI and Dog the Bounty Hunter have run,
right,
as it pertains to finding missing persons.
Find the person,
because when you're in business, you need to find people, whether that's people to buy your product or people to work inside of your organization to build your vision and your mission. And so when I think about things that we can learn from Dog the Bounty Hunter in finding missing persons, I think we have to start at first understanding, who are we looking for? We have to define who we're looking for. Otherwise, we have desperation. Right? And when we think about desperation, it leads to deal breakers and divorce, if we put it in the context of dating.
Yes, and you don't want that in your business at all.
That's right.
You can smell a desperate realtor when they're looking for an admin.
And you can,
that's true.
And
they're like, can you do 14 things that I don't want to do and post to social media?
Yeah.
That's right. I heard one time at a training and a podcast that you should just do all the things that I don't want to do. I want to go hire that person.
I learned this word called delegating.
Yeah, yeah, that's some interesting. That's some interesting hack realtor advice.
Yes,
is leverage, right? Is the overconflation use of leverage. So understanding that we have to define who we're looking to date, as it pertains to dating someone in the context of business recruiting. Because what I want to reshape how business owners and how real estate agents think about recruiting is the idea of thinking about it not from that dirty, slimy R word, recruiting to your Amway or your MLM that you're trying to build so that you don't have to work anymore and can actually be a social media influencer. I mean, thinking about recruiting not to where you'll take anyone and everyone, but where you get to selectively date whomever you want to be in business with again tomorrow or next week or next year. Because those are definitely very different perspectives on how to approach recruiting, and they shape the outcome of your business and how much joy you get in going to work.
Yeah, you get to actually get to go to work with people that you like. Just like dating, you get to date the person that you actually like versus, being desperate and just dating anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in thinking about how do we tie that into the dog recruiting or finding missing persons, I think then first we have to understand that there are so many parallels in finding Brian Laundrie and how to find missing people inside of your business. And so one of the great examples we see in how the FBI has looked for Brian Laundrie is they've distributed his photos all over media, social media, and news organizations, right? And so they do that so that anyone who sees him is able to call and report the missing person,
Right.
because they know what he looks like.
Right.
Hey, so we want to know what the person
clear.
looks like. That's right. We want to be really clear on who am I looking for, what do they look like, right? And then we want to know. The FBI has told us about this person's history and backstory and the things that have shaped who they are. Okay, so we know that Brian hiked the Appalachian Trail, that he lives in Florida, that his parents do, that he's oftentimes visited this swampland and national park, and the thought is he's not hiding in a Ritz-Carlton. He's actually instead likely somewhere in a state park, a forest, a swampland, living off the grid rather than going from $16 motels to motels, right? And so we're understanding what's their experience and then what has shaped them to likely tell us in the future what is their most probable behavior.
Yeah. Where are
forward. That's right. And so let's unpack that a little bit to think about recruiting when we're looking at selective recruiting to hire or be in business with the best people to help us accomplish our desired mission or vision. So I want to think about then, or I would ask entrepreneurs to think about what shaped you and what shapes the people around you in your organization that you would love to see more of.
Right.
For instance, Mike, I'll go through this, or Tyler will go through this as an example together. Outside of business, so let's take business out of it. What did you do before business, before any job at all that's made you who you are?
Who, me?
Sure.
Outside of business, I would either say it would either be my religion or family.
Awesome. Tell me about your religion.
And I want to say more spirituality versus religion. But what it allows me to do is there's a guy named Jesus, and he's like a role model to me. And normally when I make decisions in my life, that's the lens that I would like to make the decisions. Now, am I perfect at that? Absolutely not. But that's where I aspire. That's my aspirational model.
And so you make you try to use that as your North Star. How does that shape your decision making? How does Jesus, the model, shape your decision
Just
making?
based on if something is going to happen, I just kind of ask myself, what would he do in that situation? And then that's the decision that I tend to make.
Perfect. So I know then automatically that that's shaped a portion of your decision-making lens. And therefore, if I'm trying to motivate you, I could also tie things back to understanding through that context of how you see the world and how you make decisions, right? So now I've got some insight as to how to lead and potentially how you might make future-based decisions. You said family was something as well? What does that mean?
I'm a family man. I have a lot of kids. I'm married. So that obviously kind of guides me in my decision-making and what's best for, from a family perspective.
Okay. So your family is important to you. What is it about your family that's important to you?
I provide for my family. They're really important from a support. That's why I work so hard.
Yeah,
I think so. I want to be a good provider for them. So it ends up being a lot of my motivation. I get my why, why I get up.
So I heard you say that honoring your commitment and providing is where you derive value,
legacy,
and you see that as one of your core pillars for why you are compelled to go take action. Did you ever play sports?
I did.
What team sports or individual?
Both, but primarily team sports.
What did you learn how did team sports shape who you are?
So team sports allowed me to understand that the team is greater than the whole, and if as an the team is better than is greater than the individual, and that if the individual wants to get goals, that has to be done within the framework, which is the overall team.
Yeah.
So you have to play within that framework and just no plays off. And so that has allowed me to lead people from that perspective, because if you have a bunch of individuals on a football field, you have chaos. But if you got Tom Brady and he's just taking it, it literally looks like a car just driving down the road, because it's just moving in unison. It's beautiful to watch. And so that's how you want your business to be. You want your business to be predictable, and if you run it that way, it can be.
So what I heard you say is that the team shapes you because you understand that everyone working together is more effective and more efficient. And then you also have to figure out how to have that balance between each person inside of the team in order to get the desired action. There has to be synergy. There has to be cohesiveness. There has to be teamwork.
Yeah.
In order to make the dream work. And so, so cheesy. And so that's shaped who you are, right? And then we could go down this path, and I could say, okay, what are your hobbies, right? Like,
right.
What soft skills do you have? How do you feel about responsibility? Like, were you a single parent? I know that you were. How did that shape you?
Right.
What's your childhood look like? How much responsibility did you have inside of the family? Like, there's so many things that make you who you are. And yet so many times we often, in business and in recruiting, we overlook all of these things. And yet they're likely the biggest predictor of the person's values and characters, and then how they show up in your organization.
Right.
Is there a pattern of life story about how you got here? Because that pattern is likely what's made you who you are today, and will continue to make you who you are in the future, barring some massive environment change.
Right.
Eric, where was your first job at?
I worked at a radio station when I was not old enough to be employed. That or the child labor laws were different at the time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
that job shaped you in any way, shape, or form?
100%. In fact, I actually I just changed the word I was going to say, because I was just talking about this actually. So I worked at a radio station when I was 14, but I started there when I was like 10. And our station, our general manager would listen to our air checks all the time. And I would get red penned and notes over and over and over with feedback on ways to improve. Wow. And different vocabulary and grammar that wasn't pronounced correctly, or different dialect that wasn't proper, or all this different oversight and insight into critical feedback I got all the time. Well, we take that exact same model and apply it to listening to all of our salespeople's calls and presentations in order to teach them. Because that was the most effective way for me to learn at the time, was to break down game film the same way that Peyton Manning does, we do with our real estate agents. So absolutely it shaped who I am, because it made me understand that the difference between excellence and mediocrity is just a really thin line.
Yeah, just a word.
Yeah, it's preparation.
It's
practice. It's revision. It's a science experiment. It's testing and measuring, and then redeploying that remeasured and revised approach. And so I don't know if we would host a podcast. If not, I don't know if we would do public speaking if I wasn't used to talking publicly as a 10-year-old from the time I was 10 to 25 years old or more.
Yeah.
That absolutely shaped me.
Yeah.
Interesting. I always think everybody's first job can definitely.
What was yours? Slinging roofing?
Nope. It was.
What do you think you did, Mike?
Slinging shoes.
Slinging shoes.
Well,
wasn't going to guess.
Yeah, too late.
Wasn't going to guess it.
Yeah, I want to see if Mike can guess. That was a hint. It was a hint.
So was it like finish line?
I bet he was like Ed Bundy.
Al Bundy.
Al, there we go. Thank you. Ed was the.
I am the black Al Bundy.
You're gonna be mad when I tell you because it's very obvious.
What is it?
I was a customer service rep at a bowling alley.
Oh, you were slinging shoes.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
You're
so. Yeah. How did that shape you then?
I was thinking about that, and
I never would have guessed that.
No, me neither.
Yeah, what I learned there though was how to adapt to different situations. I was 14, and I also was learning how to talk to customers, like how to deal with parents at like that are stressed out at birthday parties, or at the same time having to like run back and fix a broken lane, or having to like work with other people. Just something as simple as that, and like learning just the fundamentals of just working in like a working environment and navigating that in those relationships.
So adaptability is what I hear.
So I learned a lot of adaptability and
a lot of soft skills around not pissing mom off at a birthday party.
Exactly. Yeah. And then as byproduct, I got a bowl all the time. And now I just wish I could do that all the time.
You should. Quit.
Could you see Tyler would just be a professional bowler, and he'd have one of those like balls that had cards in it. Right?
Yeah,
like he would have.
I'd probably go with the kingpin route with the rose in the ball.
That'd be great. I have a buddy that's a pro bowler. I don't know anything.
It's
I'm
everything I wish
terrible
I could be.
bowler.
So
have groupies,
high goals, and
things. It's clearly shaped him.
I just want to bowl for a living.
So, understanding that in the missing person conversation allows us to also know a lot about what the person's values are, what their desired long-term goals are. Now we know Tyler's is to bowl. Like this whole time, I thought he wanted to shoot video and flip cards, but nope, he wants to be a pro bowler.
I mean, we play poker during league nights, so there's cards involved. I film. I film.
You do
myself.
Film. That's right.
I tie it all together, baby.
Wow.
Do it all.
But now we know, right? It tells us a little bit of who we're working with. I already know that Tyler's a creative and that he requires like variety.
Yeah.
Right. And so that shows up actually in that conversation.
Heck yeah.
And it also tells me that if I'm looking to hire Tyler, that there's going to need to be a lot of opportunity and a lot of different ways in which he can fulfill and satisfy that like curiosity desire of his in order to like retain him.
What you're doing is you're creating an avatar.
Yeah.
You're creating a wanted poster in your mind. Like you're clear that we're looking for Brian Laundrie, but in your business, you're looking for what is that avatar? What is that person? Is that person an operations person? Well, you're wanting somebody who's the detail oriented, that's going to be the total opposite of myself. So that's the clarity that you need. So when you go out there, you know, if the person is like, man, I'd offer this guy a real estate job as a salesperson, he's probably probably won't end up being a great admin.
So I want to unpack that a little bit because you're right. I'm going to call this like 3 layers deep of the 3-layer salad of missing persons here. So oftentimes we hear real estate agents who are looking for an admin who's detail oriented, right? That's like the number one most common thing that people say that they want. And I go, okay, that's great. No one's going to say I want an admin who's not detail oriented, right? So like, okay, congratulations. You've satisfied the first step in real estate admin mediocrity.
Yeah.
So how do we know, right? When you say detail oriented, how does detail oriented show up in that recruiting conversation or in that?
Well, the resume doesn't have misspellings.
Okay, perfect, right? So resume's got no typos, or there's been that detail, and then
they've demonstrated, like have them give stories on how they've demonstrated those results. Sometimes you can even give them a task.
Yeah. So then what you're saying is you're going to check for competency by either like empowering them with some task to measure their actual ability to be detail oriented or not.
Right.
And maybe detail oriented is not actually what you need. Maybe you need a certain level of detail oriented, but speed is more important than accuracy, right?
I agree. Yeah.
So like think about the difference between, do you need someone who's a court reporter, right? Who's like making all of the monologue, during a hearing, where speed and accuracy is likely really important,
Right.
or do you need above average accuracy with good speed? What is that threshold?
Right. And so I did a poor job of defining.
No. I love it, because this is precisely what we want to unpack for people. Is that most people will say, I knew what you mean, but most people will say, I want someone detail oriented. And then I go, okay, well, how do you know? Testing it is a fantastic way to measure it. And then I want to also then start to like tie this loop. I want to circle the drain to think about like, how will you show up consistently and demonstrate that detail oriented is someone that you actually are, not someone you are during the interview.
Right.
Do you hide your crazy on our first and second date?
Right.
Or are you just not crazy?
Right.
And so how do I flush that out by triangulating all of these different factors to see, are you truly a hell yes? And by fitting my missing person. And so I want to know, like, what in your life has demonstrated that you're detail oriented?
Right.
It's like, if you're detail oriented and your clothes are wrinkled, the audio doesn't match the video.
Right. And well, the problem is detail oriented to me is different than detail oriented to you.
That's right.
That's just like, that's the problem. Is like, we have to understand, what does that mean to you? And then does that align with my principles and what I'm looking for?
Right.
Eric, what does detail oriented mean to you?
It actually means probably
nothing.
Probably nothing that anyone else is thinking, because to me, what I'm thinking is like someone who's like organized and sees chaos or clutter and then brings order to that. And so they see the details of chaos and bring them in an organized and like
some bullet points,
controlled manner. What's that?
Maybe some bullet points.
Bullet points, yes. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you write a really well detailed paragraph or like essay, I'm not reading it. Yep, or I might next week when I print it off and finally have some downtime to like go through and look at it. But I'm probably not going to notice the typos as much in that paragraph because I can't pay attention long enough to read your paragraph.
Yeah.
But if you bullet point it for me, then I'd love to see it be detail oriented. Yeah.
A good example of that is, I remember I was looking to hire my first administrator, and I read a book, and as that book, I read that book, an avatar emerged. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for my wife.
Okay.
I'm looking for someone who, like what my wife does. She makes me look good. Like, I lose my keys.
Okay.
Guess what? Baby, where are my keys at? She knows where my keys are. So when I'm interviewing someone, I'm looking for, in the most non-creepy way, I'm looking for someone who does
order,
that.
Who brings order to your business, who finds your blind spots, right? Who becomes the extra set of like eyes and and oversight. That's right.
Yeah, that has my back. So that is what I mean when you're looking for someone. If you can get really clear on what that looks like, when you're interviewing people, you'll be like, nope.
That's right.
Nope. Come on, let's talk some more.
That's right. And so just along that same vein of thinking about the relationship or the dating concept is where I want to dispel the sleaziness of recruiting is that it is just one meeting at a time, right? Is going on that first meeting or that first face-to-face appointment where you're learning about the values and the goals of the person that you're meeting with doesn't mean that you have to partner with them forever. Right. It's just one meeting at a time to decide if we want to go on another meeting or not. Do we want to continue this relationship tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? We don't have to necessarily think about next year, but you don't, that's right. You don't have to get married. You have to just decide, are we going to meet again?
Yes.
We're going bowling or not.
Yes.
That's right. And so
that was your go-to date, wasn't it?
That's right.
That's what hooked Kate.
Oh, yeah.
That is
go
so
bowling.
true. That is so true. Okay. So then I think
Got free games, okay?
Yeah.
that process of business dating, of business recruiting, then in real estate goes that it's one meeting at a time, right? It's that one date at a time. It is then having permission to have transparency to talk about goals, values, and future. And then once we understand who that person is, then we get to set our next meeting date. Right? We get to then before going to the car, we establish when are we going to go on another meeting again, or when are we not dating?
Yes, you get to. So I tell people all the time. Sales and recruiting are the same. They're cousins. It's game. When I go into a bar, the objective is to find a girlfriend, right? So it's not to find, like, you don't want to take every woman. You don't want every woman your girlfriend. You just want to find one, right? So you go into the bar, you start having conversations.
I go to church.
Or you go to the church, whatever this could be,
Bible study.
and you start having conversations. Some people you want to have a conversation with again. Some people you don't.
That's right.
The choice is yours. The objective is to then, hey, we're at church. Let's go have some coffee afterward, right?
Yeah.
Or if they say no, then you just agree to keep having a relationship and deepen in that relationship. It's just, and then you keep pushing the conversation forward. All you're doing is building relationships. It's not recruiting.
Right. That's right. And so why do people resist this entire process then?
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection. Okay. What's interesting is you can't even get rejected if all you're doing is if you are just going on one meeting.
Yeah.
Because you don't even know if you want to even be in relationship with that person.
Right. And I think that's the problem, is like people will not, they conflate rejection, they conflate it, and they think they're getting rejected when if you're genuinely meeting with people just to build relationships, there is no rejection.
That's right.
Because it's a relationship.
That's right.
Unless you don't like them.
That's right. You're literally just going there to serve the knowing and like exchange of value between two people.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're just going to actually learn about the other person and then decide, are they somebody you want to bring, that you want to continue to meet with and have a relationship with or not?
Absolutely. And so I feel that a lot of times when people, it's a mindset shift. I know we say that all the time.
It is.
So it's a mindset shift when you are in it to genuinely have these relationships. I talk to people like, I'll buy you coffee. I'm not interested in being recruited. Well, great. I'm not recruiting you.
That's right.
Can I buy you a Coke?
Yeah. I'm not actually even sure if we want to be in business together, right?
I might not like you. You might not, you don't, so it may not be. It might not be something, but I would love to buy you a Coke. And to believe it or not, a lot of times I'll have a conversation and I get so many like best practices and other like tidbits that I can then incorporate into my business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I heard you say is that you set that initial appointment in order to discover if you want to be in business relationship or business partnership with someone. So it could be, hey, Michael, I've heard a lot of great things about you. I've seen your signs all over town. I've seen you on LinkedIn, all of these different places. Would you ever be open to an opportunity for us to work together if we could find something that was a win for you and a win for me?
Yeah. And what are they? Yes or no?
There's no energy to that, right?
Yeah.
There's no energy to whether or not we can find a win for the two of us, and whether or not we would be open-minded to that opportunity. There's no because who says no to that, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, if there's an opportunity, it's a win for me. Like, that sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah. And so when we pack all this Dog the Bounty Hunter process of missing persons together, it's setting that initial appointment of deciding, do I want to even meet with this potential missing person to see if in fact they are the person I'm looking for? So how am I going to set that initial appointment? But before I do that, I need to get really clear on who am I looking for?
Right.
right? What does this person think like, act like, walk like, talk like? And then what experiences have shaped who they are that contribute to their core values, to the way that they show up in business, to the way that they interact with other people? And then do they fit for a potential role inside of, my business or my company? And once I'm really crystal clear on that, and I've really drilled down, and not necessarily just the surface level, like, well, I want someone who's not a victim. I hear that all the time. Oh, great. How would you know? You've started now with 7 billion people on the planet, and I don't know that any of them hold up a sign and say, I'm not a victim. Mm-hmm. So we're going to need to narrow it down more than that. You can
hear it, though. You can hear them. You can hear it when they blame stuff on other people.
We can hear it. But then I think, too, what if I didn't want to start with this really big, wide pool of people and have to talk to every one of them? How could I get even more narrow-minded? If I needed someone who was incredibly detail-oriented, I might look for an architect. Right. I might need someone who's using a paintbrush to sift through dinosaur bones, right? Like if that's what I need, that experience shapes that particular trait. And so when I get really crystal clear on what has shaped them and what's most important to me, I can narrow my focus on who I'm looking for and what their experience likely is. Then I'm going to set my appointment, and then on the appointment itself, we're going through the get to know you phase. What are your goals? What are your values? What do you want out of your life? What do you bring to the organization potentially? And then do we want to go on another meeting or not?
Right.
Because we don't need to be in partnership with anyone and everyone. We only need to be in business and partnerships with those that are in alignment.
The perfect person.
That's right.
So this is where I want to stop and pause, because we really need to put a thumbtack in this. We spend a lot of time we have to identify the avatar or that person that makes up the position. The problem is that we often find people that we like, and we then say, okay, we're going to make that person fit. And that is not how this works.
No.
I don't elect, we're not going to bring politics in this, but I'm not going to elect a Republican and then have them talk about, the pro-abortion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if I want something, I need to get a Republican or a Democrat. So if you're finding somebody, you have to find that person, and you can't change them.
Yeah.
It is who they are who they are. You put that avatar in that position.
Yeah. What do you do when you're neither a Republican or a Democrat because you think they're both crazy? Because they don't. I'm just kidding.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to.
Because they don't align with anything that you think.
So I mean, that's the problem.
That's right.
Is that people do is like I like this person, but then
bless their heart.
And then they can't do the job because either they don't have the skill set or the ability to do it, or there's something else going on in their life. And then guess what? The business suffers.
Absolutely.
You suffer because you brought in the wrong avatar.
Know who you're looking for, know what they look like, and then don't settle until you find the right missing person.
Yes, I want to hit that because I think that we know what we're looking for, and then we just bring people in and hope that they can grow to the position. I'm just going to tell you, to be honest with you, the rock stars are rock stars before you hire them. You got to hire a rock star, and then, they discovered they're a rock star. They just didn't know it.
Yeah, I don't think you want to date on potential.
Right.
Yeah, I think they could be a good fit.
Yeah.
Speaking of good fits and what you guys are talking about, who are you missing in your organization currently as of the first weekend of October?
Yeah, for me, I know a few people, it seems like, but when we look at the organization at large, we're looking for great real estate operators, like good business operators from a team perspective that have the ability and the experience to lead other teams and other CEOs. As we build out a nationwide network of real estate entrepreneurs and leaders, we're looking for people who have leadership experience and also know how to operate as a high-level CEO of a real estate team in order to lead regions and CEOs.
What about you, Mike?
I'm looking for, it's always operations. Operations is, that's just it makes your business just run so smooth. It's like the extra horsepower you need. So I'm always looking for operations people. and salespeople, obviously. But yeah.